Welcome back to the world's finest assassin gets reincarnated in the world as an aristocrat. Anime review episode number 4. Yeah, this one I'm discussing episodes 6 through 10. And you're probably thinking, why are you discussing 5 episodes for? You just basically last episode you just discovered 1. Well, because I watched all of them. Well, I watched 6 I watched last night when I was basically after I did my last episode of this one last night. And 7 through 10 I just watched today. Now, 6 comes from the interlude book. I barely remember the interlude. Mostly put, basically, you can kind of say this happened. Okay, this interlude introduced the character of Mahei. I think it's a pronounced name. That's her right there, the blue hair girl. Yep. And she doesn't wear this outfit at first. Oh no. Now, in case you're wondering, where's El and Tarty on this? They don't show up until like a little over halfway through the episode, which you could probably blame the book on that. So, pretty much they're a group of orphans who just give out sightseeing tours, which that's quite nice of them to do. Raise some money. And then all of a sudden, like 4 guys decide to just kidnap all these girls, take them to an orphanage by force, and have them make clothes, give them a food that's barely able to survive a week, and do something very stupid. Yeah, this particular director of this orphanage, who I highly doubt even one here in the US would do something this stupid, takes these girls and do human trafficking. Yes, well, mostly has one of the girls be offered to various different nobles to take turns with her. I should point out, though, this girl is 12. I get the fact she's a beautiful little girl, but this is completely unnecessary. And thank God we don't get much detail as this. We do get detail. One person gets a chance to do this. Yes, and one of the villains of this episode is a Viscount. Yes, basically one of the low-ranking noble. Takes one of the girls, apparently he's a freaking regular, and has his way with her. I don't know if he did anything really appropriate to her or not. It's implied he may have. So this girl who got tired of this decided to take a sharp object and cut up her own face in order to get him to stop this. And this apparently went on for 2 years. So this started when they were 10. And, well, some of them were 10 anyways. Ma was basically 12. And then the director's like, basically, she's become 12. They're going to offer her up. She's like, oh no. Basically due to her, what she did to one of her friends. So, she's about to cut herself with a scythe. But look if Illick finally shows up halfway through the episode. Where the heck have you been, man? So, like, that isn't very nice. So he offers the director a good chunk of money to buy her. It's like, add it to the family. Of course, he can tell something's wrong, but she thinks that because he's the executive of a trading company, though an illegitimate son, she kind of thinks that he basically has mannerism. He won't do the same thing that the other older evil gentleman did. So he can, however, come back in 3 days. But apparently they couldn't wait to basically do what it did to her to one of her friends. So they decided to have the director try to have his way with her by taking her someplace else. But lucky enough, she breaks away. And she's actually the only one of the girls who actually has mana. She's not even a noble. So one of the guy's henchmen is able to stop her, though lucky enough, Illick shows up and beats the crap out of both of them. And kind of in a way coerces a confession out of the director. Because he forces him to basically tell all dirty deeds. So we have soldiers go arrest the Viscount, where he takes a girl he thinks is probably one of the girls from the orphanage, but it's actually Tarty. Yes. Where he proceeds to rip open her dress in the front. And you think, oh, he's going to do something else with her? Oh, no, he stopped before he could do anything further. And she goes off, and she's perfectly fine. Yeah, it's Tarty. I knew right away it was Tarty because they didn't show her face, but I can tell it was Tarty because of the hair. So Maha is basically welcomed as part of the Bellark family. Goes later on in the very next episode. He is pretty much basically welcome to the family. He heals up Bellar's legitimate son. And then, of course, he becomes part of the family. And so he's offered a particular store, though he's basically trying to think of something basically to sell at this particular store because he's basically trying to become a merchant. So he creates moisturizer. Yes, seriously, that's what he does. He creates moisturizer. Oh, by the way, Maha is basically made as part of the register as his sister. Of course, she has known at this point that his run name is Lou, not exactly like Illarg as the story goes. Not at this point, probably a little bit later. And he's living in an actual house with the girls, and they all take turns. No, not doing each other. You might think no, cooking. Yep, they all take turns cooking, and they all love each other's cooking. I mean, Illarg gets a chance to cook, Tarty cooks, even Maha cooks. So they start up a shop, and here's the real thing about this cool shop. It's called Org, and all the employees are all her old friends who basically she basically helped out. And really cool little moment here is that when they're out getting like some food and they're about to be attacked by two guys, lucky enough Maha comes in and just basically beats the crap out of these two guys, and she basically angrily tells them, "Don't touch my girls," and they're never seen again. The moisturizer itself, after he makes it, Illarg shows it off to his fake stepmother, calls her mother, and she likes it. Yeah, puts it on, it works great. They do cut the bit out here where they use soap to remove makeup. Yes, soap. Which even I think that's quite dangerous. So she puts it on, and she approves of it. She basically says, "I don't like you very much, but I do like your product. So we'll support it." And they start their store. It becomes a huge hit with everybody. Though this product does come to play in a later episode. And after spending a couple episodes basically as Illarg, yeah, then by the very next episode, apparently 2 years have passed by because, well, that's how much time passed by. Excuse me, by the way, he does mention in order to make the product, he had to make it at his home. Well, not technically in his home itself, but basically in the territory. So he has to go to Tadi territory in order to make the particular product. And he wanted to keep it a secret. He wanted to hire too many people because they might bribe them in order to get the secret of the moisturizer. But people get hired anyways, voice the plot up, but they can't find the formula. Yep. And you're thinking, wait, they went through this particular plot, the whole thing of this moisturizer, in just one episode. Well, it does come to play a part in another episode. And, by the way, 7 covers 13, 16, 18. Yes. Now, there is basically something that was, from what I can tell, something that was cut previously, a visit. This actually was the second visit in the book when Lou visits Dia, which they cut the thing in the anime where he learned how to fly, where he basically uses wind magic to make himself fly, and he goes into her bedroom. Yes, goes to her bedroom, tries some stuff, like basically has new spells with her. Basically, he does frequent business with her. There's mentioned frequently he visits her once a month. And then for the next episode, he goes home. Tarty, of course, well, I should also point out something that does happen in the book. I have to bring this up. Otherwise, though, you're like, people who read the book like, wait, you didn't bring this up even though it happened in the book and the anime? Well, the two girls, Ma and Tarty, decide to sleep with him. No, not to have sex, just sleep. And they wake up next morning, like, they say something, and they look at the covers below the belt line. Yeah, he has something. Something guys get when they're basically near girls. Very beautiful girls. I'm not going to say what it is because it's kind of gross, to say the least. Because it involves his groin. Yes. So, then of course, when he gets home, Tarty tells his mother about it. Yes, seriously. So, he basically is sleeping in his bed. Apparently, he knew his mother was coming. And she was going to examine him to see what the heck it is. And she's like, no, not a child anymore. Of course, Tarty helps him dress him. And then he just politely pushes his mother out of the room, which I thought that was quite funny. But man, okay, since with his own mother do this, I've never heard of mother actually doing this at all to basically a 12-year-old boy. Well, he's probably this boy maybe 14. Yeah, 14. So then of course then they go visit. Well, and then of course in this very episode, in episode number 8, which by the way covers 16 and 17, where he goes to talk to his father. And this is a very good conversation. And this conversation is from the book, mind you, which I do appreciate the anime keeping this in. That's one thing you at least got to give good praise with the anime. They keep a lot of the important dialogue from the book in the anime for certain scenes. Now, this scene is set in the study. Yes, in the book was a study too, so that's not a change. Mostly it goes like this, it's like, oh, you complete your mission, you want to stay as it, but Belloc wants you to quit being a sass, make a merchant for a time. And he's like, no, but I'd like to keep the identity anyways. And he's like, why? 2 reasons. 1, because he thinks the sass is good for him. And 2, he's in love with Dia and he wants to marry her. And of course his father laughs at that, but he's quite serious. Because basically he can't do it as a merchant, but he can do it as an aristocrat. So he pretty much becomes an aristocratic assassin. And he, of course, goes on his very first mission. Yes, his very first solo mission with Tarty. Yep. Yeah, so he's pretty much given his first mission. And his first mission is to kill a count. An evil count. Well, mostly behind the scenes he is. This account is pretty much a traitor. Yes, he is a traitor. He sells military secrets for drugs. So, he uses his identity to get close to the wife, which of course the wife does reveal to him that he apparently drinks a glass of wine before he goes to bed. Of course, there's a party, and apparently here's the thing: he basically comes to visit her because he has new version of the moisturizer, basically updated version of it, and they briefly talks. He basically talks politely about the husband, and the husband probably thinks that because his wife is very beautiful, that Elarg might steal her from him. He's not interested in her because she's like 20 years older than he is. And plus, he's already got a woman, basically, he wants Dia. So, then him and Tarty, yes, Tarty, this actually was their very first assignment by themselves, where he basically uses magic to create a sniper rifle. Yes, a sniper rifle with a magic scope and with a magic bullet. That you see the count when he comes out, like, so good. And bang, he dies. And, of course, he felt as though this death was very necessary. He probably didn't like to do it, but he probably felt as though death was necessary. And in the book, they do cut this part out of the anime that he basically wanted to make sure it was a murder, not a suicide. So, with the assignment completed, you're probably thinking, okay, is that the end of the episode? Well, yes. Of course, that covered 18 and 19. 10, which was actually the most recent episode to air, which actually this one aired just today. This just covered one chapter, chapter 20, though I think they must have added some stuff here. So pretty much, he receives info when he comes home after his assignment that Dia's home country is in the middle of a civil war. So he goes visiting her because he's worried about her. And then they go on a date. Though she is curious about the change of his hair color. So she wears a dress, and of course they go out for some food. They play a game involving an arrow and taking a teddy bear, and of course they find a little boy. This of course happens like probably just after they eat. Yeah, after they eat, basically they find a little boy, which thanks to Dia's magic, they're able to find his mother, and he says the reason why he helped out, of course, she thinks because of his kindness. He thinks because he didn't want to sour the memory. He left the child there crying. So after, of course, they had. By the way, the food they ate was lasagna. They ate that raft. They had Got the teddy bear. Then they proceed to go to the hot spring. Yes, which he's a bit nervous about because, well, like, it says a mixed bath, and she has no idea what that is. Apparently, aristocrats, apparently nobles who have no problem with showing nudity, well, in his world, they do have a problem with it. So they both strip down naked, and they go in the hot spring, and, like, they play for a bit, it's about bouncy, and then, of course, they go somewhere underwater, where they kiss, but basically they're both naked, and no, they don't do anything, just kiss, and they just basically swim around. After they get up, apparently drive off screen, of course, he proceeds to leave, goes home, and then apparently the whole kind townspeople are actually just soldiers working for her father. And he goes home, and then for like very next day, he apparently is like relaxed in the field, and then Tarty comes up and says basically that there's an emergency, and then he gets to its home, there's a wounded soldier inside of his house. And he's given an assignment to kill the Count of Anique's daughter, Dia. Of course, he accepts, but basically doesn't go full detail this into the very next episode. Pretty much what this ending does is set up the end of the book. Which, by the way, the book itself is only 23 chapters. Yep, it's only 23 chapters. So, they have pretty much, in a way, covered they cover like most of this book. Let's see. Just take a look here. So they pretty much have covered, in just 10 episodes, they have covered this much of the book in 10 episodes. And this is just the first book of 6 for the series. I gotta say, I love this series. It is really good. I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I personally can't wait for the next 2 episodes. Do I think they're going to wrap up the season, like, pretty much that last 3 chapters in the next episode? No, they're probably going to stretch it out a bit. If I take the guess, they're probably going to last about 3 more episodes of this. Yep. I wasn't initially planning on reviewing episode 10 with this one, but it just happened to be there. So I figured, though, why not? Yep. Great episodes. And so far, in a ways, these episodes have kept pretty faithful to the source material. Now, in case you're curious, though, like from the later sub exception, the interlude, which I barely remember, was a lot of... Now, in the book itself, well, I remember Maya just so completely out of nowhere in the book. So, that's what it kind of felt like to me when I was reading it. It took me a while to read this book, especially this book is almost 300 pages. And so far, they covered most of this book in just 10 episodes. And that's good. Really good. If this was some other anime... Like, if it was some other studio who makes stuff like this, they might be rushing to this book. And this episode, this season, no, they haven't. And this also is by far, for one book, the highest number of episodes I have personally reviewed for an anime. Because normal highest I've gotten to is basically like 3, 4, or 5. That's just for one book. 4 is the usual amount of episodes they usually have to cover a particular book for episodes based upon a light novel. The highest they might go is 5 or 6 at the latest. I mean, the only one I could think of that covered 6 for one book was Cautious Hero. That was the one I could personally think of did that. Well, you can also say Goblin Slayer did that too, but they covered like most of the first book, and then they just, before they got to the end of that first book, they pretty much went to the second book, covered the entirety of that throughout most of the season, and then they basically had the last couple of episodes covered the ending of the first book of the series. And yes, looking forward to season 2 when it comes out. So, starting next week, this anime review series will be added to my anime review schedule. So it'll be coming out every Wednesday for the time being until whenever the season ends. So as of right now, I officially am done bench watching the series, and I'll be waiting for whenever the series releases the very next episode. Okay, so that's it for Cycle Review. Next one is going to be 2 straight comic corners. Yep. Where I'm going to be discussing... the next one is going to be one Marvel trade and some issues from one Marvel series because I couldn't get my hands on the trade for it. And the other one is basically 2 more Marvel trades digitally. Okay? Next video. Bye.